The holographic projector hummed to life in Lecture Hall Gamma 7 aboard the prestigious Galactic Military Academy Station Nexus 7. Commander Tom Marley strutted to the front of the classroom, his 4 yellow eyes gleaming with the kind of confidence that only comes from never being wrong. Well, never being corrected anyway. "Attention, cadets." Tom's voice boomed through the acoustically perfect chamber. His blue-scaled hide glistened under the artificial lighting as he clasped his 6-fingered hands behind his back. "Today we continue our fascinating study of extinct civilizations, and by fascinating I mean laughably primitive." The assembled cadets straightened in their bioadaptive seats. Judge Quintara, a purple-skinned Zephyrian, wrapped her tentacles neatly around her data pad. Her species prided itself on organization, though Tom often wondered if that was just because they needed 8 arms to keep track of all their failures. Moran, the only Vorthan in the class, sat perfectly still. His translucent skin caught the light beautifully, which was probably the only beautiful thing about his boring species. Brandon Torres, scaled and green like most Draknari, flicked his forked tongue nervously. The lizard people were always nervous about something. "Now then," Tom continued, activating the holographic display with a theatrical flourish, "let us discuss one of the galaxy's greatest success stories, the complete and total eradication of the species known as humans." The hologram shifted to show a blue-green planet, rotating slowly. Earth. Tom's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smirk among his people. "Behold, the third rock from a yellow dwarf star. For 200 years this world has been nothing more than a lifeless husk, not a single human survivor anywhere in the known galaxy." Tom paused for dramatic effect, his chest puffing with pride, a testament to proper military planning and execution. Judge Quintara raised one tentacle. "Commander Marley, what made humans such a threat that total elimination was necessary?" Tom's laugh was like grinding metal. "Threat? Oh, my dear tentacled friend, they were barely a threat to themselves. Humans were essentially hairless primates who had somehow stumbled upon fire and crude metallurgy. They spent most of their existence hitting each other with increasingly sophisticated sticks." More chuckles rippled through the classroom. Brandon Torres hissed softly in amusement, while Moran's crystalline features remained as expressionless as always. "The humans," Tom continued, warming to his favorite subject, "were so primitive that they actually believed their planet was the center of the universe. Can you imagine? They worshipped invisible entities in the sky and thought their little blue marble was somehow special." He gestured dismissively at the hologram. "They couldn't even achieve faster than light travel after thousands of years of evolution. Pathetic, really." At the back of the classroom, a new figure slipped quietly through the entrance. Amy Kowalski moved with practiced silence, sliding into the last row of seats without drawing attention. She was of average height for her species, well, for humans anyway. Nobody else in the room would know that. Her dark hair was pulled back in Regulation Academy style, and her uniform was crisp and properly pressed. Just another transfer student joining mid-semester. Tom was still lecturing, his voice full of contempt. The humans had this adorable belief that they were somehow destined for greatness. They wrote stories about spreading across the stars, about becoming a galactic civilization. He shook his scaled head in mock sympathy. Instead, they got exactly what every inferior species gets: complete extinction. Amy settled into her seat, pulling out a standard Academy datapad. Her fingers moved across the screen with casual efficiency, but she was listening to every word. Her expression remained carefully neutral, though if anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed the slight upward curve at the corner of her mouth. The final human settlements were eliminated exactly 203 years ago, Tom declared with satisfaction. Every last one of them, men, women, children gone. Wiped clean from the galaxy like the mistake they always were. Moran raised his hand, his voice as monotone as his appearance. "Commander, were there any notable human achievements before their extinction?" "Oh yes." Tom's eyes lit up with sadistic glee. "They managed to create weapons capable of destroying their own planet several times over. They poisoned their oceans, burned their forests, and spent their final centuries fighting wars over resources they were too stupid to manage properly. He clicked his mandibles again. Really, we did the galaxy a favor by putting them out of their misery. Amy leaned back in her chair, still silent. Her dark eyes moved from student to student, cataloguing their reactions. Judge Quintar looked appropriately disgusted by humanity's supposed failures. Brandon Torres nodded along with Tom's lecture, his reptilian features showing smug superiority. Even quiet Moran seemed satisfied by the tale of human incompetence. "Any questions about Earth's former inhabitants?" Tom asked, surveying his classroom with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged. "Though I can't imagine what more there is to say about such a thoroughly unremarkable species." That's when Amy Kowalski raised her hand. Commander Tom Marley's 4 yellow eyes swept across the classroom and landed on the raised appendage in the back row. He squinted slightly, trying to place the new fate. Transfer students were always so eager to prove themselves, asking obvious questions that had already been covered in basic xenobiology courses. "Yes?" Tom's tone carried the barely concealed irritation of a professor interrupted during his favorite monologue. "You have a question about humanity's spectacular failures, Cadet." "Kowalski," Amy replied smoothly, her voice carrying just enough deference to sound respectful. "Amy Kowalski, sir, just transferred from the Outer Rim Academy." "Ah yes, the frontier schools." Tom's mandibles clicked dismissively. "I suppose they don't cover galactic history as thoroughly out there. What's your question, Cadet Kowalski?" "Something about Earth's pathetic defense systems? Their laughably primitive weapons? Please enlighten us with your curiosity." Amy tilted her head slightly, as if considering her words carefully. The gesture was perfectly innocent, perfectly normal, just a student trying to frame her question properly. "Well, Commander Marley, you've made it very clear that Earth has absolutely no survivors, not a single human left anywhere in the galaxy, completely extinct for over 200 years. "That is correct," Tom nodded approvingly. Finally, a student who had been paying attention. "Total elimination. Not one human remains." It was really quite efficient. All things considered. Judge Quintara's tentacles rustled approvingly. Brandon Torres flicked his tongue in what passed for agreement among the Draconari. Even Moran's crystalline features seemed to gleam with satisfaction. Amy leaned forward slightly in her seat, her dark eyes fixed on Tom with what looked like genuine curiosity. "So if Earth has absolutely no survivors, and every single human has been dead for centuries?" She paused, letting the question hang in the air for just a moment. "Then what exactly am I?" The classroom fell dead silent. The kind of silence that happens when a plasma conduit explodes, or when a star goes supernova. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring and your brain struggle to process what just happened. Even the station's ambient humming seemed to fade away. Commander Tom Marley's 4 yellow eyes blinked in perfect sequence. Blink, 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 blink. His scaled mouth opened slightly, then closed again, then opened. His brain, so confident just moments before, seemed to be running some kind of error diagnostic. "I'm sorry," Tom said slowly, his voice suddenly lacking its usual commanding boom. "What did you just say?" Amy smiled. It wasn't a particularly threatening smile, but it wasn't entirely friendly either. It was the kind of smile that suggested someone was about to have a very bad day, and that someone probably wasn't her. "I asked what I am," she repeated, her tone still perfectly conversational. "Since you've just spent the last 20 minutes explaining how every member of my species has been dead for 2 centuries, I'm naturally curious about my current status." The whispers started immediately. Judge Quintara's tentacles began writhing nervously, creating soft rustling sounds as they rubbed against each other. Brandon Torres's forked tongue darted in and out rapidly, tasting the air for danger like his ancestors had tasted for prey. Moran's translucent skin began shifting colors, cycling through the spectrum of Vorthan anxiety. That's impossible," Tom stammered, his confidence evaporating like water in a vacuum. "You can't be, I mean, you're obviously not." Amy stood up slowly, deliberately. The movement drew every eye in the classroom. With careful precision, She began unfastening her Regulation Academy jacket. The heavy fabric slid from her shoulders, revealing the simple undershirt beneath. And suddenly, it was obvious. The bipedal stance, the forward-facing eyes, the external ears, the specific bone structure of her face, the way her hair grew, the proportions of her limbs, everything that had been hidden by the uniform's bulk and the assumption that she belonged there, became crystal clear. Amy Kowalski was unmistakably, undeniably human. "Oh, this is awkward," she said cheerfully, folding her jacket neatly and placing it on her desk. "I mean, here I've been attending classes for 3 years, getting decent grades, making friends." She gestured around the room with mock confusion. "And apparently I've been dead the whole time. That's going to make filing my taxes really complicated." Judge Quintara made a strangled sound and scooted her chair back from her desk. Brandon Torres actually hissed, his scales bristling as his fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. 3 other cadets near the front of the room were slowly backing away, as if Amy might suddenly sprout fangs and start devouring everyone. Commander Tom Marley just stood there, his mouth working soundlessly like a fish pulled from water. His carefully constructed lecture, his absolute certainty, his professional reputation, all crumbling in real time. "Wait, Tom finally managed to sputter, his voice cracking like a cadet going through puberty. "This is clearly some kind of mistake. You're obviously not human. You must be some other bipedal species." "Yes. There are dozens of them. Hundreds even." Amy raised an eyebrow, the expression so perfectly human that several cadets flinched. "Really? Which one?" "Well, you could be Tom's scaled fingers drummed nervously against his podium. "Tyrellian. Yes, Tyrellians are bipedal and have similar bone structure. Tyrellians have 3 hearts and purple blood," Amy pointed out helpfully. "Also, they're all 7 feet tall and have gills behind their ears." "Should I hold my breath underwater for 20 minutes to prove I'm not Tyrellian?" Tom's mandibles clicked frantically. "Okay, not Tyrellian, but maybe Nexari. They look almost identical to what humans supposedly looked like." Amy's laugh filled the classroom. It was a distinctly human sound, warm and rich, and completely unlike the mechanical clicking of Tom's species or the harmonic resonance of the Zephyrians. "Oh, Commander, you're really reaching now." She bent down and retrieved a worn leather bag from beside her chair. The material itself was unusual, nothing like the synthetic fabrics used throughout the galaxy. Several cadets leaned forward despite their fear, curiosity overriding caution. "Let me help clear up this confusion," Amy said, opening the bag with deliberate slowness. "See, the thing about being a supposedly extinct species is that you tend to hold on to little mementos, sentimental value, you know." The first item she pulled out was a small rectangular device, its surface cracked and yellowed with age. She pressed a worn button, and suddenly the classroom filled with sound. Music. Distinctly alien music with strange rhythms and incomprehensible lyrics, but undeniably sophisticated and complex. "This is called a portable music player," Amy explained, conversationally. "This particular song is called Bohemian Rhapsody by a group called Queen. It's about 6 minutes long, and makes absolutely no logical sense, which is peak human culture right there." Judge Quintara's tentacles had gone completely rigid. That's impossible. Human music was supposedly primitive grunting and random noise." "Oh, you've been reading the official reports," Amy grinned. "Those are about as accurate as your extinction data, apparently." Next, she pulled out a stack of physical photographs. Actual paper, another material that had supposedly vanished with humanity. The images showed towering structures of glass and steel, vast cities stretching to the horizon, bridges spanning impossible distances. "New York City circa 2157, Amy said, passing the photos around. "Right before the supposed final invasion. Notice how those buildings are taller and more elegant than most of what you see in current galactic architecture. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a primitive ape with delusions of grandeur." Brandon Torres held one of the photographs with trembling clawed hands. "These structures, they're beautiful and complex. This level of engineering, is apparently beyond the capabilities of knuckle-dragging primates. Amy finished. Funny how that works out. She reached into the bag again, this time producing a small device covered in buttons and symbols. When she activated it, holographic text began scrolling across a tiny screen. The language was completely alien to everyone in the room except Amy. This is a personal data pad containing about 3,000 human books, including technical manuals, literature, poetry, scientific journals, and my grandmother's cookie recipes, she said. I've been carrying it around for 3 years. Funny thing about extinct civilizations, we tend to be really nostalgic about our homework. Commander Tom Marley was making small choking sounds. But, the reports, the intelligence data, everything confirms that humans are dead? Amy nodded sympathetically. Yeah, about that. Here's the thing, Commander. I've been sitting in your classroom for 3 years. 3 years, taking notes, passing exams, participating in war games, eating in the cafeteria with everyone else. She gestured around the room. Judge Quintara, you borrowed my notes for the Galactic history final last semester. The Zephyrian's tentacles curled into tight knots. But you said your name was Amy Kowalski from the Outer Rim colonies, which is technically true, Amy shrugged. I am Amy Kowalski, and I did come from the Outer Rim. I just didn't mention which species I belong to. Nobody asked. The classroom door suddenly burst open with a pneumatic hiss. Professor Morton, the insectoid head of xenobiology, chittered rapidly as he scuttled into the room on 6 spindly legs. His compound eyes immediately fixed on Amy, then swept across the shocked faces of the other students. What is happening here? Morton's voice buzzed through his translator. I heard shouting, and several cadets running through the corridors screaming about, he paused, his antennae twitching, about impossible things. Oh, hi, Professor Morton, Amy waved cheerfully. I was just explaining to Commander Marley that his data on human extinction might be slightly inaccurate. You know, minor details, like the fact that we're not actually extinct. Morton's 6 legs locked in place. His compound eyes focused and refocused on Amy, processing what he was seeing. You cannot. Human? Yeah, I get that reaction a lot lately. Amy packed her artifacts back into the leather bag with practiced efficiency. But here's the really fun part, Professor. I'm not the only one. The silence that followed was deafening. What do you mean? Tom whispered, though part of him clearly didn't want to know the answer. Amy's smile widened, and for the first time it looked distinctly predatory. Well, let's see. There's Mike in the engineering department. Sarah works in station communications. Oh, and David runs that little cafe on level 7 where everyone gets those amazing sandwiches. She tapped her finger thoughtfully against her chin. Actually, now that I think about it, there are probably a few more scattered around the galaxy. You know how humans are. We get around. Professor Morton's legs gave out, and he collapsed into the nearest chair with a metallic clang. Emergency protocol activation, Professor Morton chittered, his translator crackling with static as panic overrode his usual calm demeanor. His spindly fingers jabbed at his communication device with desperate urgency. Admiral Vashi, immediate response required in Lecture Hall Gamma 7. Code, he paused, his compound eyes swiveling wildly. What's the code for impossible species resurrection? The holographic projector in the center of the room flickered to life, displaying the stern visage of Admiral Vashi. The Cortex 8 tentacle arms writhed behind his bulbous head as he took in the scene, his 3 black eyes narrowing to pinpricks. Professor Morton, explain this interruption. I was in the middle of coordinating fleet movements across 7 sectors. Admiral Morton's voice pitched higher. We have a situation, a human situation. Admiral Vashi's tentacles went completely still. In Korthak body language, that was the equivalent of a full system freeze. Repeat that. Amy stood up and waved cheerfully at the hologram. Hi there, Admiral. I'm the situation. Amy Kowalski, 3rd-year tactical studies student, also apparently a member of a completely extinct species. Awkward, right? The Admiral's center eye dilated so rapidly that Amy was genuinely concerned he might have some kind of seizure. This cannot be. Our intelligence reports are about as reliable as a chocolate teapot, Amy finished helpfully. But hey, don't feel bad. It's not like you're supposed to be the most advanced military intelligence network in the galaxy or anything. Commander Tom Marley, who had been suspiciously quiet, suddenly lurched forward. Admiral, there must be an explanation. Our xenobiology scanners, our genetic databases, our entire classification system. It's impossible for a human to have infiltrated the academy without detection. Amy burst out laughing. The sound echoed through the classroom and presumably through Admiral Vashi's command center, because his tentacles began twitching in what looked like barely controlled rage. Oh, this is rich, Amy gasped between giggles. You want to know how I did it? I walked through the front door and filled out an application. That's it. No special technology. No advanced camouflage. No shape-shifting abilities. I literally just applied to school. But the background checks. Judge Quintara protested. Her tentacles coiled so tightly they looked painful. The security clearances. The medical examinations. All handled by other humans, Amy shrugged. Turns out when you've got people working in the right departments, paperwork becomes surprisingly flexible. Mike in engineering helped design the false identity algorithms. Sarah in communications made sure my transcripts looked legitimate. Oh, and the medical exams? Well, let's just say Dr. Peterson in the health center has been very accommodating for the past 15 years. Admiral Vashi's hologram flickered as his rage interfered with the transmission. 15 years? There are more of you in the medical department? Admiral, there are more of us everywhere, Amy said, her voice taking on a tone of mock sympathy. Did you really think you could wipe out an entire species and not have a few survivors slip through the cracks? We're like roaches. You can stomp on us all you want, but there's always a few hiding in the walls. The classroom had become a symphony of alien panic. Brandon Torres was making low hissing sounds while his scales shifted colors rapidly. Moran's crystalline body was cycling through the entire visible spectrum. Even the usually unflappable Professor Mortin was clicking his mandibles in a staccato rhythm that suggested imminent nervous breakdown. For decades, Amy continued, settling back into her chair like she was enjoying a pleasant conversation, humans have been working as mechanics in your shipyards, traders in your markets, clerks in your government offices, even teachers in your schools. We've been studying you, learning your weaknesses, understanding your technology. She paused for dramatic effect. All while you congratulated yourselves on your superior intellect and flawless military precision. Admiral Vashi's three eyes were now focused entirely on Amy, his tentacles writhing in what could charitably be described as controlled panic. How many? How many what, Admiral? How many humans are still alive? Amy tilted her head thoughtfully, as if she were trying to remember a grocery list rather than potentially destabilizing the entire galactic military structure. Oh, you know, a few here, a few there. We're not exactly conducting a census, but... She smiled that predatory smile again. Let's just say reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated. The hologram of Admiral Vashi began making choking sounds. Oh, Admiral, you look a little pale, Amy observed with mock concern. Well, as pale as someone with purple skin can look anyway. Maybe you should sit down for this next part? There's more? Commander Tom Marley croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. So much more, Amy grinned, pulling out her ancient human datapad again. See, the thing about being supposedly extinct is that it gives you a lot of freedom to do research. And boy have we been busy little researchers. She tapped the device and streams of data began scrolling across its small screen. For instance, did you know that Korthik tentacles go completely numb when exposed to subsonic frequencies at exactly 47.3 Hz, or that Draknari scales become brittle and flake off after prolonged exposure to calcium fluoride? Fascinating stuff, really. Brandon Torres instinctively touched his neck where his scales were thickest, his reptilian features twisting with horror. How could you possibly know that? Decades of observation, Amy replied cheerfully. When you're working alongside someone for 20 years, you pick up all sorts of interesting biological trivia. Plus, humans have always been naturally curious about anatomy. It's how we survived as a species for so long. Admiral Vashi's hologram stabilized as he fought to regain control. This intelligence gathering, it's impossible. Our security protocols were designed by committees that included humans, Amy interrupted. Amazing how many loopholes appear in security systems when the people writing them know exactly what they need to hide from. The classroom door exploded inward with enough force to dent the reinforced walls. General Krufnog stormed through the opening, his massive Grockian frame filling the doorway. His rocky hide glistened with what looked like perspiration, and his forearms were clenched into fists the size of small boulders. "What is the meaning of this chaos?" Krufnog roared, his voice like grinding stone. "Half my command staff is in hysterics, claiming there are humans loose on the station." Amy waved at him with the same casual friendliness she'd shown everyone else.
"Hi there, General. I'm the human in question."
"Nice to finally meet you in person. I've heard so much about your tactical brilliance from the maintenance crews." Krufnog's yellow eyes focused on Amy, and his expression went through several fascinating changes. Confusion, disbelief, recognition, and finally dawning horror. You cannot. Human? Yeah, we've covered this. I'm starting to think you might want to update your threat assessment databases. Amy tucked her datapad away with practiced ease. "But since you're here, General, maybe you can help clear up a few things for Admiral Vashi and Commander Marley." She stood up again, this time with the confidence of someone who held all the cards and knew it. "See, there seems to be some confusion about what actually happened to Earth during your little genocide project." The word genocide hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several cadets shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that they were sitting in a room with someone whose entire species had been systematically eliminated. Or so they'd thought. "Earth wasn't destroyed," Amy announced casually, as if she were commenting on the weather. "It was evacuated." The silence was so complete that Amy could hear the station's life support systems humming through the walls. "Evacuated?" Admiral Vashi whispered. "Oh yes," Amy nodded. "Turns out humans are pretty good at reading the writing on the wall. When we realized you were coming to wipe us out, we did what humans do best. We adapted." She gestured expansively. "We studied your technology, learned your languages, figured out your customs. Some of us even got plastic surgery to blend in better. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to pass casual inspection." General Krufnog made a sound like grinding bedrock. The planet was thoroughly scanned. Every continent, every city, every settlement was confirmed destroyed. "Because we evacuated using your own transport ships," Amy laughed. "Honestly, the security on those things is terrible. A few forged documents, some fake uniforms, and suddenly humans are just another refugee species being relocated for their own safety. Your own humanitarian protocols made it incredibly easy." Judge Quintara's tentacles were writhing so violently that she looked like she was having some kind of seizure. "But where did you go?" "Oh, here and there," Amy said airily. "Mostly we scattered across the galaxy. Some humans settled on colony worlds under false identities. Others joined trading fleets or merchant guilds. A few of us even got jobs in government positions." She paused, savoring the expressions of horror around the room. "Amazing how far a decent education and a willingness to work hard can take you, even when everyone thinks you're extinct." "This is impossible," General Krufnog rumbled. "Our intelligence network spans the entire galaxy. The most advanced civilizations in known space contribute to our databases. There is no way that a bunch of primitive apes could fool you," Amy finished sweetly. "And yet, here we are. Not only did we fool you, we've been studying you for 2 centuries while you patted yourselves on the back for your thoroughness." She pulled out her datapad one more time, this time displaying what looked like a star chart. "Our network currently spans 12 star systems, with active cells in 43 major population centers. We've got humans working in shipyards, government offices, research facilities, and military academies." She gestured around the classroom with a flourish. Obviously, Admiral Veshi's tentacles had gone completely limp. 12 systems? 12 that I know about, Amy corrected. "There might be more. We're not exactly centralized. You understand. Hard to wipe out a species when they're spread across half the galaxy and nobody knows they exist. Amy looked around the room at the collection of shocked faces, her expression shifting from casual amusement to something far more serious. But you know what the really funny part is? All this time you've been congratulating yourselves on your military superiority, your advanced technology, your flawless strategic planning. She paused, letting the tension build. And we've been sabotaging you every step of the way. The color drained from Admiral Vash's already pale features. Sabotage? Oh yes. Amy's smile returned, but this time it was sharp enough to cut through reinforced hull plating. All those mysterious equipment failures your fleets have been experiencing, the navigation errors that keep sending ships to the wrong sectors, the supply shortages that never quite make sense. She tapped her datapad, and a new hologram appeared in the center of the room. The display showed a complex network of interconnected nodes, each one pulsing with activity. Names, dates, locations, and incident reports scrolled past in rapid succession. Remember Admiral Drawhorn's flagship losing main power right before that crucial battle at Sector 9? Amy asked conversationally. The one that cost you control of 3 key trade routes? Well, meet Pete Morrison, your head mechanic for the past 8 years. A human face appeared in the hologram, middle-aged, wearing standard engineering coveralls with the kind of friendly smile that suggested he'd help you move furniture on the weekend. He was clearly human, and just as clearly working in the bowels of an alien warship. Pete's got a real talent for making critical systems develop sudden, inexplicable problems at exactly the wrong moment, Amy continued. Fusion reactors that hiccup during combat maneuvers, shield generators that randomly recalibrate themselves, weapon systems that somehow forget their targeting protocols. She shrugged. Pete's a bit of an artist, really. General Krufnog's rocky features were shifting through what might have been emotions if anyone could read Grockian expressions. The Drawhorn incident cost us an entire campaign. Thousands of casualties, billions in lost resources. Yeah, Pete felt pretty bad about that, Amy nodded sympathetically. But you know how it is. Wars, hell and all that. Sometimes you've got to make hard choices for the greater good. She manipulated the hologram again, bringing up another face. This time it was a woman in chef's whites, standing in what looked like a massive industrial kitchen. And speaking of hard choices, remember that food poisoning incident at Zorthak High Command last year, the one that laid out half their general staff for 3 weeks? Admiral Vashi made a strangled noise. The hegemony blamed us for biological warfare. We nearly went to war with the Zorthak over that incident. Yeah, tensions got pretty heated, Amy agreed. Lucky thing it was just bad seafood, right? I mean, that's what the official report said. Just a coincidence that Chef Maria Gonzalez happened to serve that particular batch of imported Torellian clam substitute to exactly the right people at exactly the right time. The woman in the hologram waved cheerfully at the camera, her human features unmistakable now that everyone knew what to look for. Maria's been the head chef at Zorthak Command for 12 years, Amy explained. Wonderful woman. Makes a mean lasagna. Also has impeccable timing when it comes to food safety violations. Quartermaster I appeared in the hologram next, wearing the standard uniform of the Galactic Supply Corps. He was clearly human, with the kind of unremarkable face that would blend into any crowd. And then there's good old Quartermaster Anders, you know, the guy responsible for routing supply shipments across 7 sectors. Amy's grin widened as she watched the recognition dawn on several faces. All those missing supply convoys? The ones that somehow end up in empty space or delivered to the wrong planets? Andy's been having the most amazing streak of filing errors. Really, it's statistically impossible to be that consistently wrong by accident. The hologram shifted again, showing dozens more faces, humans working in communication centers, maintenance bays, government offices, research facilities, all of them smiling, all of them completely unnoticed, for years or decades. 200 years, Amy said softly, her voice cutting through the shocked silence. For 200 years you thought you were the apex predators of the galaxy, the most advanced, most sophisticated civilizations in known space, and the whole time, The species you supposedly exterminated was living among you, working beside you, learning everything about you. She stood up, gathering her belongings with calm efficiency, and occasionally making sure your mighty war machine developed the most inconvenient hiccups at the most inconvenient times. Admiral Vash's hologram flickered as his rage overwhelmed the transmission stability. This is an act of war. When I report this to the Galactic Council, you'll tell them what? Amy interrupted, slinging her bag over her shoulder. That the extinct human species isn't actually extinct? That your entire intelligence network has been compromised for centuries? That the greatest military powers in the galaxy have been consistently outsmarted by a bunch of supposedly primitive apes? She headed toward the door, then paused and looked back over her shoulder. Good luck with that presentation, Admiral. I'm sure it'll go over really well. The door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the classroom full of aliens staring at each other in stunned silence. Somewhere in the distance an alarm began to sound.